Thank you for listening to the BjjBrick Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, friends, to the BjjBrick Podcast. This is episode 337. This is a topical episode where Gary, Byron, and I will share our limited knowledge with you. And today's topic is having a dynamic submission guard. We're going to start this episode with a quote, and the quote is by an unknown source, but it says, "Eyes are useless when the mind is blind." And I have a feeling there's a deep meaning to that. I don't know what it is, but when I think about that quote as it may relate to jiu-jitsu, I think about a common, well, it's something that I tend to do from time to time, and I think everybody does a little bit, and that's somebody will be teaching a move, and you'll decide immediately that doesn't fit my game, it doesn't fit my body type, and you just sort of close-minded to the whole idea. And I have found that to be a big mistake. I have found that when I put some effort into learning the move that's being taught, even if I don't think it's going to fit into my game, that I oftentimes learn something about my jiu-jitsu, or maybe I find a way to get that position that I wasn't aware of before, and it does become a part of my game. I think it's a horrible mistake, and I try and avoid it these days to sort of write things off without giving them a fair shot first.
Joe, I 100% agree with you there. I could think of early in my career, probably within the first couple weeks of my career at jiu-jitsu, and learning a triangle. And I remember learning the triangle, and I was a little older when I started, 37 maybe, somewhere around there, 36, 35, 30, somewhere in there.
You're just a young Gary at the
time.
I'm
so old, I can't remember. But I just remember I was like, oh, man, I really had that closed-minded approach that you were just talking about. My eyes were closed, and I thought a triangle would never work for me. And, I didn't really practice it that hard right off the bat. And, the good thing is the curriculum back then, if you just kept showing up, you'd go over stuff over and over again. Every couple of months, it would repeat. And so a triangle came again, and I probably still had that same attitude, and it came back again. And somehow I ended up turning it into my game. I caught somebody with a armless triangle, believe it or not. Don't know how that worked. But then I actually made it into my game and got pretty good at triangles at one point. And, I was so glad I got rid of that attitude. For some reason, I didn't think it would work. And, triangle's a great move. And, once you tell your mind you can't do something or you're not interested in it, it's hard to change that feeling and get you back. So, keep an open mind, keep your eyes open, keep your mind open. And even if it may not be your best move, like Joe said, you're going to learn about it. It's going to help you defend. When people are trying to set you up, you're going to kind of know what's going on. You can, reverse engineer it to get out of it. So very important to learn what your instructor is going to teach you and keep an open mind and, try it and drill it to the best of your ability.
Gary, I like it. That's a good way to approach this. The eyes are useless when the mind is blind. Quote. I like to say this, and maybe it's a little outdated. I should update it. But I used to say having a blue belt, skepticism or curiosity. Just have that blue belt mindset. Like blue belts are curious of what's out there for jiu-jitsu. They know there's more out there, but you show them something that's not very good, and they know it. They're like, this is not a good technique. And there are techniques that people show that are just kind of rubbish sometimes. Somebody will bring this, hey, what's this? That's rubbish.
like the lug nut?
But I can honestly say, make that to a pretty good white belt. A lot of white belts have, people are getting so much better at jiu-jitsu so much quicker. But I'll stick with the blue belt mind frame of, be curious about stuff and also have a good, detector and when something is just rubbish and be able to call that out when it does present itself. I read this quote to my wife and Becky says, hey, you ever grapple, with your eyes closed? And yeah, that we used to do that every now and then just for fun. And she goes, how much did it change? And I said, it definitely, it doesn't help, but it's not that big of a difference if you could kind of concentrate more. And she had an interesting theory.
Go ahead with her theory,
and
Mark.
she said that, she said, granted, maybe your game wouldn't change that much or you'd be able to do most of what you could do. But she thought her being quite a bit newer at jiu-jitsu, her game would be a lot worse if she couldn't see. So where I said, yeah, maybe because my game by a third or by a half of my ability, she says her game would be cut a lot worse than that. And she just being newer with this, she has to look, and it's not all, her ability to kind of feel where their weight is and that sort of thing isn't there yet. And so it would affect her game more than the same. I thought, yeah, it'd be about the same percent. Maybe my game is cut in half and your game cut in half. She says, no, my game would be cut in more than your game. I thought that was interesting. I don't know if it's true or not, but
I think that might be a valid point.
Yeah.
But I was going to make a comment on that. And, Joe, I've talked about this with Joe before. But there's some people, one person that I roll with all the time that I close my eyes. And it just makes me feel better. Like if I look at this person, my stomach starts feeling horrible and, I start gagging. And that's when I roll with Byron. So I do have to close my eyes when I roll with him.
Byron, I wonder if you think there's any logic to this as well. I also think that the further along somebody is in their jiu-jitsu journey, the longer they've been doing it, the less it affects them maybe if they take a period of time off or if they have a period where they don't train very often. I don't think you lose as much. It gets so ingrained in your mind and in your muscle memory that you think there's any logic to that?
Yeah, I think there's some logic to that. I think the bigger fear of taking time off, let's say somebody trains for 2 months and says, I have to take some time off because of this is happening. They're less likely to just come back. If you've been training for 6 years and you take a few months off, we know you're coming back. I mean, the mats are going to call you back to where you belong. But yeah, it's if you just train for a few months, take a month off or 2 months or whatever, I think you'll lose it a little bit easier in that respect. Yeah. And Gary, I don't blame you, man. Well, I mean, everybody. That's the thing with. I notice people that talk to me just close their eyes a lot of times. They wear sunglasses and they don't want to look. That's why this is a podcast.
Yeah. Joe, you're talking about the longer you train, is it less likely that you lose it? And I agree with that also. And I think of my basketball career. I grew up playing basketball every day up until my early 30s, and once I picked up jiu-jitsu, I didn't play basketball at all really until here a year ago, and I did lose a lot of the how do I say it, the mechanic or the more athletic stuff,
the hoops,
right. Trying to play defense or my handle was garbage, but I tell you, I didn't lose my shot. It's like I can even go out there right now, somebody guard me, come off a pick, and I feel like it's money every time. And so yeah, I do agree with that. I do think if I took 6 months off today out of jiu-jitsu versus 6 months 10 years ago, I think I would, I don't think I would be in great shape, grappling shape, but I do think the muscle memory, like you said, it's so ingrained in there. I do think I'd have an easier time getting back and, not making as many mistakes. I may be a little slower and not as fluid, but I do think because we've done it so many times that it's going to come back quicker.
Yeah, you probably took 100,000 jump shots in a 15-year period of time, and
well, yeah. Well, the funny thing is, Byron would know the only time in like those 15 years I took off, the only time I'd actually even shoot. Byron, remember when sometimes I'd warm up for jiu-jitsu at the end of the court on the mat, shooting jump shots.
That was in the old
That's
gymnasium.
How I used to warm up. Yeah,
we had an entire gymnasium with mats, and there was often a basketball laying there, and the goal would be down.
A flat basketball would be laying there, and I would, I'd spend like 10 minutes shooting a flat basketball.
Here's what was real
that was
weird.
like the only thing I did,
and it's starting to make sense. Is we would play a little bit of one-on-one for for a little bit to get warmed up, and Gary also would close his eyes for me on that. Like he's like, I'm not going to play.
No, we didn't play Byron, we didn't play one-on-one. Whenever I play that with you, it's one on bum.
But you kept your eyes closed just so it wouldn't be so miserable on that experience either. And it's all coming together now.
You know, the thing is, though, if I close my eyes playing basketball, I think I would do a lot better in jiu-jitsu closing my eyes in basketball.
You still can make an occasional free throw, I would imagine.
Remember the time we tried to play dodgeball and you closed your eyes?
What happened on this story?
No, he doesn't remember.
All right. Well,
closing your eyes when you're rolling is one way to sort of handicap yourself a little bit and maybe make you a little more aware with your other senses. It's a game you could play, I guess, while you're a game within the game of jiu-jitsu.
Well, that's a good idea.
Man, that's a good idea for a book. Has anybody written one?
I've heard about one, an audio book.
What audio book would that be, Byron?
Well, I have made an audiobook called 6 Games for BJJ, where it changes your ultimate goal. You know, it takes away from get a dominant position and submit the person to something a little bit different. And just by changing the goal of your rolling, you can still do the same things a lot of times and have similar experiences, but you kind of see the path in a different way. And that's really the goal with that audiobook. Check it out. It's for purchase, and the money goes and helps support the show. You can go to the BjjBrick website and click on the shop, and it pops right up. Was it $5.99? And there'll be a link to the shop in the show notes if you want to check it out there. We definitely appreciate it. I've heard good things about it. And today, talking about eyes closed, that's a good one. That's not on there. If I will say this, if you want to close your eyes and grapple, that's cool. It's kind of a fun experiment. I think everybody should try it, after you kind of get an idea of what your own game is like. But both people should not do this while you're rolling. Like, one person needs to have their eyes open and be aware of the surroundings. That way you don't roll into your neighbor or slam them into the pole or the concrete, whatever it is. Somebody needs to be aware of what's up, and they kind of need to be in charge of the safety of when you get too close to the edge. Okay, stop. We got to reset. So both people shouldn't do that, but one person, that's kind of a fun way to kind of see what it's like. And it's just, you don't need a blindfold. Just close your eyes and roll a little bit. And sometimes you'll open on accident or whatever, but it's kind of an interesting way to kind of see how your jiu-jitsu does in the dark.
Well, I remember you were talking about putting it into your game or your 6 Games for BJJ book. When it's Talk Like a Pirate Day, you were going to have everybody wear 2 eye patches and roll that day, but you decided against it. But I like the idea, though. Definitely will help your game.
Yeah, it's like the pirate that lost his eye. You know how he lost his eye, Gary?
No, I don't.
A bird pooped in his eye.
Oh, and he used his hook to wipe it.
That's true. It's just after he lost his hand, he got the hook put in.
Yep. But definitely check out the BjjBrick Brick store, the BjjBrick Brick shop, whatever you want to call it. The book is in there along with another audio book. And what do we got coming up? We have President's Day coming up. It makes a great President's Day gift, and all your teammates will love it.
Don't forget Valentine's Day as well.
You can't
get it for your girlfriend. That's coming up soon.
That's true.
I would love to see the look on my wife's face as I give her the 6 Games for BJJ audiobook.
I would love to see the look on your face when she gives you that book. You're like, I listened to this guy enough.
I got to close my eyes.
But, hey, Joe, I heard you have an interesting off-the-mat lesson you could bring into the show this week.
I do. I was fortunate enough last week to spend the week on a cruise boat with my beautiful wife and my 3-year-old grandson, along with my 5 siblings and my dad. So it was a great, we had a great time. But after 5 or 6 days of vacationing with a toddler, you get a little bit tired, and he gets a little bit tired. And so my wife, it was a sea day, and she said, I'm going to lay down and take a nap. And I said, well, I'll take Sebastian. I'll put him in the stroller. I'll go get him some chocolate milk. I'll get myself a Mai Tai or something and find a place to just walk around. He'll take a rest, and she'll get a nap, and I'll get a walk, and it's going to be all good. So went down the promenade and found a deli that had it was a coffee shop, had hot chocolate. And asked the gal if she'd make it just kind of lukewarm for the toddler, and she said no problem. So I get the chocolate milk, I push the stroller out by the garbage can, and I've got his sippy cup in one cup holder and my cup in another cup holder, and there's a flat spot in the middle. I put the coffee cup down on the flat spot, and I take the lid off the sippy cup and the coffee cup, pour the coffee into the sippy cup, throw the coffee cup away, throw the lid away, pick the lid up to put it on the sippy cup, and I realized I'd thrown the sippy cup lid in the garbage. And I'm like, oh. So I look at the garbage, and it's like, it's just dry trash. I'm like, I guess I can fish it out and go wash it off. But it's one of them garbage cans like that won't let the coons get in. And so I don't know that they have a coon infestation on this ship. But after a few seconds of digging around the trash and have a couple hundred people look at me, I thought, well, so much for the sippy cup lid. And now we got only one cup left for him and a couple days left in the cruise. And I got a cup of hot chocolate, and I don't know what I'm going to do with it now. And I really almost thought about just going back up to the room at that point. But I thought, no, I'm going to go across the promenade and get that drink I was going to order, and I'll just get a straw with it. He's pretty good with the straw, and he can just drink right out of the cup with the straw, and that'll be fine. So I go in, I order the drink, I get the straw, and hanging out with him while he's sipping on his chocolate milk, waiting for my drink to get made. Takes a little bit of time. Finally, it's made. I go over, I pick it up, and as I'm walking back to the stroller, I see Sebastian holding his cup out at arm's length, examining it. He says, there's something on the end of my straw, and it dropped the cup, and it spilled. Fortunately, it didn't get on him necessarily, and it didn't get on the floor, but where he puts his feet on the stroller, there's a collection of chocolate milk now. And wouldn't you know it, they only serve paper straws on the ship. And what was on the end of his straw was it was just gummed up. I hate those paper straws. So now I don't have a sippy cup for the lid for the rest of the cruise. He doesn't have any chocolate milk. He can't put his feet down because the thing's covered in chocolate milk. So once again, I'm about to go to the room. But I thought, you know what? I'm going to walk out till I got a jogging track around the fifth deck. And I'm just going to walk out there and think about this for a minute. So I walk out there, start walking around, and there's a scupper right there along the side of the ship. So I asked my grandson to get up, and I just dumped the chocolate milk into the scupper. Overboard it goes. Put him in the walker, and I'm like, it feels pretty good out here on this deck. Start walking a few laps, and 10 minutes later, he was asleep. And so I ended up getting the walk that I wanted. He got a good nap. Lisa got a good nap. But I'm telling you, there was a few moments there where it's like, this is not going to happen. And I think you can relate that to the big picture of your jiu-jitsu journey. But I also think about a competitive match. You see a competitor come out, and he's been working on his takedowns, and he's got a game plan that I'm going to take him down. I'm going to get dominant position. I'm going to work from the top. And he just gets his takedown stuffed. He gets into a violent confrontation on his feet. He ends up getting taken down, ends up getting mounted. 90 seconds into the match, he's mounted, down on points, adrenaline dump. And I think subconsciously sometimes we kind of go, well, sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. And I guess today I'm getting a lesson. But I think that the better tact, if you can just put yourself in a mindset where you're always aggressively seeking solutions and just trying to incrementally get closer and closer to your goal. And so, yeah, you have a plan, you have a path to get there, and you go all haywire, but you just keep moving in the right direction. You go from being mounted to maybe getting an ankle and quarter guard, then working to a half guard, and then a butterfly hook, and maybe you need him to get him to stand up, and you've got a great single leg X game and a foot lock game, and a minute left in the match, you get the sweep and you get the submission. So I guess that's my life lesson is that when you're doing jiu-jitsu, when you're in the match, always be moving forward, always be looking for solutions.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be necessarily the solution that you had wanted it to be. It just needs to be in the right direction. It needs to be directionally correct. And that's a good way. It's just it's okay. It's not going real good right now. How can I make it a little bit better? And then once you kind of get it back to where it's pretty good, then you could really steer that ship and get that cruise going to the right island, right, Joe?
That's a 10-4. Goodbye.
Hey guys,
Roger that.
I just got a little message here from our friend Gary that his computer died on him, and so he may or may not be back this episode. He just messaged, computer died, and then I said, can you plug it in? So even if he is plugging it in, he might be booting it up. He might be done for the day. I don't know what's happening over there in Gary's world, but as of now, he quietly left the Skype call from a computer dying. So I don't know if you caught that one or not, Joe, but right now it's Joe and I dancing in the squared circle here. But
just you and me, buddy.
We'll see what we get, and if Gary jumps back on, great. If not, this might be one of the best shows that we have ever had.
You know what the funny thing is? If Gary doesn't end up getting back on, man, we tried scheduling this for about a week to make sure that all three of us could be on.
Yeah. I have usually we have more than a week for me to edit a show and put it up. So we're not doing the most time-sensitive material to where this just happened. I got to get out tomorrow. So we talking about a submission guard, this is going to be the same topic a year from today. The stuff is pretty timeless. And so usually we record a week or so ahead of time. I could edit it kind of at my leisure when I have some free time. Tomorrow I'm going to be scrambling to edit this thing and get it pieced up there, right before it actually airs. So, we're just going to proceed with the show. And that brings us to the main topic. And the main topic this week, like Joe mentioned at the beginning of the show, is the submission guard. And this kind of came about from the program that we've started here. We've started a thing called BjjBrick by the Month. Each month, I'm going to focus on something new or something different, have a different focus for my jiu-jitsu. At the end of the month, I switch it and do something else. And I thought of this, I'm going to do this. Why not share this with everybody else? And kind of, if you want to tag along on this journey, join the Facebook group, BjjBrick by the Month. There's an article, a couple of posts on the website about it. You can go find and check them out. But this month, so we're ending January here, this month has been the submission guard. And when I first thought about doing a topic, I was like, well, we need to do guard because everybody can get to the guard. If we do the first month as mount, well, there'll be sometimes people go train and don't even get to the mount. That's not real encouraging to start off that way. And so if this is the beginning of anyone's actual journey in jiu-jitsu, to have an idea to get to guard and try to submit somebody, that's a pretty good idea because you should be able to at least obtain guard on your fellow fairly new people and get to work on that part of your game. And then I changed it from guard to submission guard because I want us to stay in the guard and work from that. And that's been really the challenging thing about this month is my guard since, and I figured it out, this is all kind of a self-realization thing here. My guard since Purple Belt has been a guard that has done a lot of sweeps and positional changes to get me on top. And yes, I have some submissions that I've been using, but if I want to stay in guard and work on guard, hey, we got Gary back, and we got him on the video. He's plugging cords in. He'll be back in any second now.
You look like a madman, Gary.
He's determined. He can't hear us yet. What's up, Gary?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you, man.
Hello?
We're just, he didn't hear us. You got to plug in your headphones, Gary.
Hello?
Hello?
What? How do I do that?
Oh, Gary. He's gonna get Connor to come help you out, buddy. He's going to have his son come in and help him. That's what's happening. Somebody's helping him. So this is probably terrible audio. Only us, we can see this. He literally has 3 or 4 chords on the screen on his computer. Somebody's helping him out. And anyway, so we're getting in deep on the submission guard thing.
Well, one of the cords is around Gary's neck now. I think he's about to get Epsteined.
Oh, man. Gary. He's still
Gary, can you hear me?
So I'll do a little editing here to clean this up because Gary's going to be yelling at us and he's not going to be there. But anyway, I'm going to send you a quick text message. I'll edit this down a little bit. We got you, Gary.
Can you hear? Okay.
Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, good. We're on. We're rocking and rolling. Gary's in. That was pretty funny, Gary, to watch. Who was helping you there with all the cords? Looked like you were all tangled up in them, fighting them.
I'm freaking tangled like a mofo. I'm on computer number 3.
Wow. I'm impressed to be able to get this up and running that quick on the 3rd try.
Oh, I can always get it up and running.
Well, but it's often disappointing once you do. So, Gary, we just started talking about the main topic here. You missed one of the best off-the-mat lessons ever. But to steam ahead, to not dump it down into the ocean here, the submission guard. And we were talking about the BjjBrick by the month and how that was the theme is to use the guard as a submission-focused tool, not just as an offensive weapon, because oftentimes with the guard you get a sweep, and then that's great. But if your goal is to work from the guard and you get a sweep in the first 30 seconds, you're no longer working your guard. You're now working the top game. And I, reflecting about having a submission guard, I haven't had a submission-oriented guard since purple belt. That's when and I would frame this as like, when I got you in my guard as a purple belt or a blue belt and a white belt, I wanted to be in my guard and I wanted to try to submit you from that position. That was my goal. If I happened to sweep you or if you happened to pull guard on me, I wasn't as happy as if I had you in my guard. That was my focus. And somewhere around brown belt, I started playing more top game. And now as a black belt, I prefer top game. And this month has been challenging to try to just stay in guard and throw up submissions and try to get angles and work things. I've definitely neglected this part of my game. I think Gary has what I would call as a submission guard.
Yeah. It's funny. I started the other way, top player. And as I got older, I hate to say it, but guard allows me to be a little bit lazier. And, but, you know, I have really found since becoming a leg lock guy and Kimura guy that the guard basically sets both those up big time. So, yeah, I like to pull guard. I mean, I love working wrestling, but I will pull guard. I do have a submission guard. I don't necessarily even try for a sweep. I do have sweeps, but I start trying to work submissions, number 1 right off the bat.
Joe, where has your guard been recently as far as maybe this month or maybe just as, where you were before? Like when you were guard, were you working to submit somebody or working anything, or were you working mostly to get on top with it?
Mostly to get on top. And honestly, I anticipate that I'll continue to do that. But, man, having some reliable submissions, really, it's hard to be a sweep guy if you can't threaten submissions. So I think you got to do both.
Yeah. And oftentimes some of the best, Umaplata is one of my favorite submissions. And even when I don't land it, I've got a sweep out of the thing. I think it's considerably easier with the gi to control the person and to actually get the submission. But either way, their escape often leads them to giving me the top position. Same thing with the guillotine. A lot of times people will kind of just flop and give me that top position, where sometimes I can still finish the guillotine. It's a lot worse. But even if not, I get top out of the deal, where a lot of other submissions, I don't know, arm bar or triangle, you're less likely to end up with a top position as they defend it. And it's just my focus over the past several years, probably closer to 10, has been to use my guard to get on top and then work to pass that guard and submit the person. Where I was explaining to my wife about my guard and how this episode was going to go. When I was purple belt, if I happened to sweep somebody and that was also a purple belt, I would be like, oh man, now I got to pass their guard. I don't want to have to do this. This is a lot of work. And it's quite the opposite now. Now I'm in someone's guard. Now it's time to go to work. I get to pass their guard. It's going to be, that's what I'm looking for. And I do think that it's a pretty big advantage to have a guard at your arsenal that you are confident in attacking submissions with. And it's just because the beauty of the guard is you could start there. If the only way I'm going to submit Gary is from mount, that's a big task to A, get on top, to B, pass his guard, to C, go from side to mount, and then stabilize it. Like, that's a lot of things that have to happen. But if Gary wants to attack me with his guard, he's doing that within seconds of us starting to roll. It's just like, man, it's such a great thing to have a submission style of guard.
I like that analogy, Byron. I never really thought of it that way. I guess I kind of thought of you get to take down and you go straight to mount, but you're right. You get to take down, you're probably stuck in either guard or half guard. You then have to pass, guard or half guard, which is one of the hardest things to do. You get yourself to side control. You have to hope that that person doesn't recover guard from side control by blocking the hips. And then you got to go to mount. Hopefully that person doesn't bump you and recover guard again. So you have to be stabilized before you can start, going to work. So, I like the analogy. You get into guard. If you do have an offensive guard, you can go to work right away. A lot of tricks in there too. You do a little fake hip bump and, as they post out, there's triangles, there's arm bars, there's kimuras, you can fake sweeps, to get the person to react one way, go for a submission. But, hey, if you do get to sweep, great. You got side control. And from there, as you said, you're going to work. You're punching the clock. You're in great position.
Yeah, I remember those days where I prefer to play guard, and I would do a submission setup that was a sweep base, where if you where I start to sweep you and you defend the sweep, and there's my submission, and because you put your hand down or you were off at an angle that gave me an advantage or something like that, and then I could attack that. Occasionally, the person wouldn't defend, and I would get the sweep. And I remember thinking, man, I wish they would have defended the sweep, and I could have actually got my attack. Nowadays, I'm happy to get that sweep and get that better top position. But it's just how our games change over time.
Yeah. But I feel like this on my game is, even though I prefer working from the bottom, I don't think that's the most advantageous. I've noticed as I've went up in ranks, people's top game have got so much better. And it seems like when I do get passed, I'm in major trouble. People at the higher levels, you get a good position and it's night. And so that is one thing I have spent the last couple of years on. Even though I still prefer guard, I felt like I was spending too much time there. I prefer submission guard, but I felt like I was lacking my devastating top pressure that you have, that Joe has, that Jake Fox has, that Greg Andres has. Guys like that. I just felt like I was lacking, and it was hurting my game. But I don't know. That's just one thing that, coming from a guy who really plays the submission guard, I do think you have to still work that top game too.
So the idea that you're using your guard for a submission is a good training tool because you could be there a lot. If you just use your guard to just attack, which lumps in the idea of having your guard for sweeps too, you may not get the same guard time training because you get an early sweep, well, then you're not working your guard at all. And really, we're looking at how your trading is going. If you want to develop a good triangle choke, and one of your best triangle choke setups, and mine, I like to set up triangle choke via a sweep. Like a scissor sweep is a good way to set up a triangle choke. Instead of putting that the knee on their stomach or their chest, you go over that first arm and it pins it to their chest. And as you go to do the kick motion, boom, their arm's out of your guard. Easy triangle setup. You don't even have to, really use your hand at all to do that. But if you do get that sweep, I'm no longer working on my triangle choke. I'm working on a top game. And so just the idea of controlling your training environment. If I want to work on my triangle choke, I have to be in the environment to make it happen. And if you just keep doing sweeps all the time, you're not going to be working on that. And just the idea of controlling where your training takes place is a nice thing to be able to do. So if you want to work on a particular submission from your guard, maybe you should take some of your better sweeps out of the game and give yourself that time in that position. That's one thing I was noticing. A lot of my setups were sweep base, and without doing the sweep first in a real threatening manner, the setup wasn't that good, and it was kind of a little bit of a challenge to find those. I definitely had a difficult month of getting submissions via using my guard. I also found my legs, my calves would cramp up. They cramped more this week or this month than probably the past 5 months. Just the position, maybe having my legs elevated, maybe having that pressure, squeezing with my legs, whatever it was. I got more calf cramps than I've had in a long time playing this sort of aggressive style of guard. But looking forward to next month.
So I guess hadn't really thought about this before, Byron, but listening to you talk, I guess you kind of use in this situation, use sweep setups like you use feints in boxing. You're not really doing it, but you've got to. You're not really trying to sweep them, but you got to do the setup in a way that sells it a little bit. I guess
that's what I ran into is because my sweep game I think is quite a bit stronger than my submission game from the guard, and because I want to get top anyway. And when I would fake the sweep because I wanted to stay in the guard, it wasn't nearly as good of a setup. And I gotta put them to where they have to defend that sweep. I need to just get the sweep, and then if I get it, then just give it up and just go back to guard and relinquish the top position to continue my training. Another key factor in developing a submission style of guard is the ability to recompose your guard. So people are going to pass your guard sometimes. And same thing as if you end up sweeping them and spending 4 or 5 minutes in mount, you didn't really work on your guard very much. If Gary passes my guard and holds me in side control for 4 or 5 minutes, I'm no longer working on my guard submission. So the ability to quickly escape and get back into business is a key element towards developing that submission guard. And it's just part of it. You have to, I tell especially new people, if you're going to work on your guard, you also need to have in mind you're going to work on your side control and mount escapes because you're going to be put there and you're going to be super frustrated. If Joe puts me in side control and I'm supposed to be working my guard, that's frustrating. If Joe puts me in side control and I'm supposed to be working my guard and a couple of side control escapes, I'm still in business. I'm still working on what I need to work on.
Yeah, I'd go one step further, Byron. I 100% agree with what you're saying. But I think additionally, you need to learn how to transition within all of the guards. Sometimes it's not, you don't get past all the way, but you get forced into a guard that isn't your A game. If you like to keep your opponent standing and they're forcing a half guard and they're coming in low, you got to be comfortable or have some ways to get them to stand up to create the space you need and to put them back where you want them to be. So, yeah, I think sort of being able to transition between all the different guards is important. You can't, well, I'm not going to say everybody couldn't, but I can't have 3 or 4 submissions from every variety of guard that's out there. It's more reasonable for me to have 2 or 3 guards that I'm good at and to be able to transition to those guards.
And that being said, as this month has progressed, obviously not all guards are the same as far as being able to pull out submissions. Didn't do much half guard. I know there are submissions from half guard, but half guard is primarily a sweep based position. You're trying to get on top. And so I worked a lot of closed guard. I still worked a little bit of butterfly guard. A butterfly guard, I would say, is also a sweep guard, but it does allow a pretty good guillotine game. and I do have a couple of nice omoplata setups as well. But just kind of being able to say which guards work well for me. Spider guard's great for submissions. I don't really work that style of a gi game, but that's a great opportunity. You know, Spider guard versus Black Widow style submissions coming at him, Gary.
Yeah, that Black Widow style is deadly.
But
Byron, though, I love throwing submissions out of half guard. So
you do.
Yeah, we all have what like Joe just said. You'll have a guard and you'll have a couple submissions out of it, and that's your go-to. Everybody's got stuff they're better at, and the half guard is like one of my go-tos, and that's where I like to throw my submissions up from mostly.
What do you hit from there, Gary?
I'll tell you. Hold on. He does a lot of Kimuras, and he also gets some access to your legs as well.
Yes. Yep. That's all I do from there is Kimuras and legs, and I go on that far side Kimura. I'll even let you pass, and I'll grab that far side Kimura.
Yeah, that's always.
As they're passing, I'll take my outside leg and elevate that leg and just set up, then reap the knee, set up leg locks from there. So, those are my two favorite things to do from that position.
It used to be what I would consider a mistake. He's going to lock up that Kimura. And if half guard, really not that good of a half guard right now, he's kind of loose on it and the pass. And then I used to, I'm doing that every time. I put the brakes on and I don't pass, and I start to rewind the situation because it's going to be bad if I pass Gary's guard that way. But this is a pretty specific part of his game that took a lot of development on his part.
Well, we talk about development, but I'll go back and I had a cheat code. Lachlan Giles, who I've talked the world about, even before you guys even really, before he blew up on the scene, he has a very good Kimura from half guard video. And if I remember right, it's probably 19 minutes long. And boy, I drilled that for a year straight. And a lot of my game is based off of that. So, I've always liked Kimuras, and I like to just look around for stuff. And that kind of piqued my interest and has really helped my game out.
So we know Gary's kind of his higher percentage submissions from guard. I mentioned mine, omoplata and guillotine. Joe, where do you fall in with some of your more common submissions from the guard?
Well, I'm an old guy. I'm a big guy, so Kimuras.
Yes.
Yep. So I do Kimuras in the gi. I do cross collar chokes. I play some half guard and some closed guard, and that's what I focused on this month. Actually, part of what I focused on was getting better at that. And I always look for Ezekiel chokes.
Let me ask you this. How does being a bigger guy help you with the Kimuras?
Yeah, it just seems like a strong guy move, and my arms are short, and it's like when I get it locked up, it's
locked
up. Yeah, it's locked up, and then just use your body to torque.
I got you.
Angles. I don't know.
That makes sense. It's funny, we talk about that, but how the game evolves. I used to, Byron, you remember, I used to be a guillotine guy. Guillotines were my move, and I loved the guard, full guard and throwing guillotines up. And, now the problem is my wrist hurts so bad that if I try to guillotine anybody, I tap myself out because both my wrists are so painful.
Gary's always tapping himself out.
Yeah, really, I can't.
That's
even
why
hold
your
a
wrists hurt
guillotine
all the time.
Yeah, but it's you have to evolve. You have to find something that doesn't hurt, doesn't tap myself out. And but that's what's so cool about the game. All of a sudden, this has been taken away, and I have to find something new, and it just keeps it interesting and fun.
So, what are some things you have a hard time with, Byron? Or what are some things you're working on?
For like this past month, or the progress has gone. Well, it's been. I was surprised with how hard it is to tap a competitive grappler out. So I'm a black belt. I spent most of the month working from my guard, and aggressively going for submissions. And I don't think I tapped a black belt out the whole month. Now, my guard held up pretty well. It didn't get passed real easy a lot, some of it did, but I was able to maintain guard. I was able to put people on the defensive quite a bit, but I just wasn't able to actually get that game up and running where I was like, yeah, I got this going on. I got close on some omoplatas, but even brown belts, black belts, I mean, I don't need to say it. Those guys are tough to submit, but I was surprised where if I had, my actual game would be to sweep them first, which I'm more than capable of doing more than once in a month. and then from that top position, either pass the guard or already be past the guard and then work a submission, which is also something that I could do more than 0 times in a month. So just, I think my submission game from guard, since I kind of put it on the shelf, other than my guillotines I think are pretty strong, but
are nasty. But
as far as arm bars, triangles, cross collar chokes, omoplatas are my second best thing, and that's everything else is kind of probably where I left it near purple belt level, and I need to occasionally work on my guard, grab the guard, stay there, and just put some pressure on that person. I got people in trouble, but I just couldn't get a black belt style of submission guard game going. And it's going to take more than a month to fix that. But doing this for a month, I realized that's real. Like, doing it one night, I didn't get any submissions, whatever. Doing it a whole month and not submitting a person similar skill level as me, that tells me that my submission game from guard is behind where it should be.
Yeah, but so the cool thing is we're always fine tuning. So
yeah.
You spent a whole month, and what I liked is you said you put people in trouble. You put people on the defensive. When you're doing a submission guard, not all the time are we going to get to submission. But what are we doing when we're in the guard? We don't want to get passed. While you're throwing that submission up and put them on the defensive, last thing they're thinking about is passing.
That's what. Yeah.
So I also think about, a lot of times I'll grab that far side Kimura, and they'll sit down, they'll tuck their arm, so I can't get anywhere, and they know my game. So then I'll do basically a modified hip bump sweep and come out on top and hopefully finish from there. The way I look at it, that means I finished from guard. I'm still looking at it that I finished from guard. I was in guard. I put him in trouble in guard. I got the sweep from guard, ended up on top, and finished from there. But everything was predicated off that submission guard. So I do think, even though, it's tough to tap black belt level, brown belt level, purple belt level people from the guard when it's not your main thing. But when you're putting people on defensive, you're doing the right steps. I mean, they're going to come. When you're going against high-level people like that, stuff doesn't change overnight. It doesn't change in 30 days. It gets better in 30 days, but it's something that the cool thing about it is you have an open mind, as we talked about the quote. Your eyes aren't closed. You said there's something, I got to spend more time on it. You realized maybe this is an area that you can work on that could use some work. And you're not even talking about your good part of your game, your sweeps. Your sweeps are very good. Your guillotine's very good. So it's just going to make you a more of a force by you working on something like that. And I just think that's cool. And to be honest, I don't want to roll with you anymore if you're going to keep working on that.
Well, Gary, you're always looking on the bright side. And Gary's the guy out of I think the three of us who we could say you have a submission guard. Like, you are more than happy to work from your guard with the goal of, this is where it stops. I'm submitting you from this position. I think Joe and I would both rather be on top and working from there to progress this grappling situation.
Well, the bad thing is I didn't even get to train this month, really. It's I had a bad case of ringworm. Basketball is really ramped up. So, this has been a rough month, and work was crazy too. I hate to say it, but I didn't even go in this month with trying to work the submission guards. So, but yeah, I guess it's good that that's part of my game. But I was a no-show basically this month.
Well, I saw you on the mats a few times for sure, and that is better than nothing. Joe,
Yeah.
over this last month, what have you either learned about your game or changed?
Well, I went into the month with pretty specific goal. When I play closed guard, I'll scissor sweep and cross collar choke going to my left. I'll scissor sweep to the left, and I'll use that to set up a cross collar choke. Going to my right, it's always a Kimura or a hip bump sweep. So I had the goal to kind of make those a little more interchangeable. So like Gary, I didn't get to train too much this month. Had the cruise, and that was 10 days of traveling and work. I didn't make it to very many regular classes, but what I did do is I got together with a friend a couple of times and went in for an hour and just worked on some of the fundamentals of breaking posture, setting up the scissor sweep, drilling it to both sides, doing the cross collar choke to the other side. And one thing I discovered, I don't see this done very often. I'm not sure I've ever seen anybody really nice, Gary. That's not just a little bit distracting. Byron and I are on a phone call, but Gary's video, we're video chatting with Gary.
I can't figure out how to get rid of it. I'm afraid I'll hang up on you guys.
Anyway, I haven't seen a lot of people do set up a scissor sweep and then turn it into a Kimura for that same side. And so a buddy of mine I got together, and we were working on that, and it's actually pretty. It seems like a pretty easy path to get there. So that was something I discovered, and it was a worthwhile month.
Yeah, as Joe commented on, just to let everybody know, because nobody else could see that with the video. We're not recording the video because we're three guys that nobody wants to see. But Gary's kind of playing with the camera with his hands, and I was like, "This is funny." I didn't realize Joe was also paying attention to that.
You guys are always paying attention to me.
Yep.
That is a little distracting. That's funny. You called him out on it.
Well, the bad thing is I'm trying to turn it off, but I don't know how to.
You have to hang up. Yeah, we're here with you.
Yeah, I don't want to mess that up. I've already messed the show up tremendously.
It's been very entertaining, and some of the best minutes were when you and your computer was down. So just kind of closing this out here. If you missed out on this month for BjJ by the Month, go check it out on Facebook or keep your eyes peeled for next month. If that's not cool, maybe you didn't want to do a submission guard, or maybe you want to work on something else. The idea of working on something for an extended amount of time is the main lesson here. Gary said he's working a Kimura style of attack for more than a year. That's really cool, and that's how you get a great submission game.
But you really impressed that on me early in my career. Byron was the one guy who actually would try to give advice to me, and I appreciated it. And I remember you always said, you used to tell me to take like a week or two and just work on something instead of just being that guy who wants to learn everything. And I'm that guy. If you tell me to do it for a week or two, I'm going to blow that out of the water. And I turn it into like 4 or 5 months. And now I actually work on something for like a year straight. I've got a very limited toolbox, but I do try to fine tune what I'm doing. But that's what I like to do. Everybody's got their own game, how they like to do it. But you were the one who kind of told me to take time to read, go in depth on stuff, and that kind of made me like jiu-jitsu even more, I guess. So thank you, Byron.
Glad one thing stuck, I guess.
You might have a limited set of tools, Gary, but at least you've upgraded to a decent toolbox and not that flimsy tool bag you used to carry around.
I hear the word flimsy a lot when people do talk about me, though.
About your tool?
Thinking about the progression for BjJ by the Month, I purposely picked a place where we could all work from, guard, and then it limited that to be submissions from guard to keep us there, keep us from getting that early sweep and not playing much guard. So I got, for time on the mat, I got a lot of guard time because I didn't get any sweeps. I didn't get any. I didn't get very many sweeps compared to what I would normally pull off. So I forced myself to work a lot from the guard. And thinking about next week or next month, I think the next move would be just takedowns, and I don't anticipate doing as many takedowns. Yes.
Since we just did submission guard, can I pull guard and go submission guard?
Well, sure.
No, I'm kidding.
I think we all need to have a couple of takedowns. And I think with jiu-jitsu, a lot of times we get a little lazy because we are wanting to work on a guard game or we don't want to fight hard for the takedown. But I think this month, guys, we need to spend a little bit more time than usual, and it might be it dependent on your training environment. If you're in a small room with a bunch of people, you can't really responsibly train hard takedowns. You're going to fall on people. You're going to land off the mat. You're going to have a hard time. But maybe the last round when most people are resting or taking a break, or maybe you just work a little, closing the distance and sort of thing. But we need to focus on working on our takedowns this month. So it may not be the same thing where last month in January, when I was doing jiu-jitsu, I was doing guard attacks. This month, I'm not planning on doing entire rounds of stand-up. And I don't think my training partners will like that either, but I do plan on every day working a little bit of takedowns with a few people and developing that part of my game that sometimes gets neglected. So I'm having more intent. I'm having more purpose behind it. I'm going to do more study. And that's what's going to be on the website and the Facebook page is some good kind of advice about general takedown stuff to get the ball rolling on that things. What do you guys think?
Well, what you were talking to Joe and I about before the show, I kind of like the idea. You were just talking about a small room, that it might be hard to do takedowns. And what you were talking to Joe and I about before the show is really working on takedowns from the knees. So,
oh man.
So is that, would that be something we could do if we don't have a lot of space there, Byron?
That's one of my pet peeves.
You know why I said that? I saw you on a post today and somebody was talking about pulling guard. And your comment was, that's not as bad as takedown from the knees. So I had to throw that in there.
Yeah.
I knew that was your pet
If you
peeve.
spend 2 minutes, if you spend 10 seconds while you're both on your knees trying to get top position, you're doing that wrong. It's just to get this.
I will literally just lay down in front of my opponent. I'll grab his lapels and just lay down and pull bottom side control before I knee wrestle.
Yeah. Good. I've done the same thing. It's all the neat thing is to get you on the ground safely. It's not a place to battle for top. It's not a real position. So just get to the ground. So you're there, pull guard, pull side control. Maybe they'll pull guard if they want to work their guard game. Maybe they'll pull side control if they want to work their escapes.
What if you both pull side control at the same time?
It's an awkward 5 minutes, Gary.
That's called cuddling.
Keep your eyes closed.
Man, I remember one time after I'd been training a couple years, when I got back into this, we had a new guy come in class, and we did our warm up, and he'd been to class before. I knew who he was, and so then the coach says, "All right, let's get a few rolls in." And literally everybody, it was a crowded room, everybody got down on their knees, including me, and this guy was like 3 feet away from me, and he just blast tackled me. And it's like, what didn't you get about everybody else was on their knees, man?
That's funny.
Crazy.
So to start off this month, I think it's important to kind of evaluate where we're at or where we think we are, because I would have probably based my submission guard game a little higher than it actually was, because it was a very trying process over this past month to not work my sweeps from my guard. So I'll go first. I have a couple of takedowns that I really like, and I have a lot that I avoid. I do like ankle picks. I like foot sweeps, and I like to try to get to the back from standing. Those are my main things I do. I would like to add in a better single leg maybe over the course of this next month, but just to sharpen those things that I'm already decent at and make them a little bit better. I don't really plan on being good at any of them in the next month. But those are kind of my keys to starting standing up and getting to be on top via takedown. Gary, what's your stand-up game like, and how is you rated overall?
I like to yell yell fire, and then when people turn around to see where the fire's at, then I blast double. And that's probably my top takedown right there. But seriously, I like a low single. I like a sweep single. And, I have been practicing a lot of wrestling for the last couple of years. It's funny, you were just talking about spending a whole time standing up, and you're like, I'll spend an hour straight just working on takedowns. And,
I saw you do that Saturday.
Yeah. My takedowns are still garbage. What I gauge myself on is I got a buddy who wrestled in college, and he really good wrestler, but he doesn't train much anymore. And every now and then, I think my jiu-jitsu or my wrestling's getting better, and he hasn't stepped on the mat in 6 months, and he still destroys me. So we were actually talking just the other day at work, and so hopefully I can test him out again to see if I'm getting better. But those are my two things I think I'm better at. I am working on slide bys. I think my slide bys are getting better. But what I really want to work on and get better at is foot sweeps. And Byron, I know you got a good foot sweep. I've been working on them, and I'm flat out garbage on them. But maybe that's what I'll make a focus. But we'll see. I know I'll get better.
You got to realize when you're starting with the foot sweep, a lot of times you just end up kicking the person in the leg. Like, sorry, yeah, just give a quick apology and keep working.
Yeah, I think I'm too nice. I'm just trying to catch him, at the right moment.
Yeah.
Because I've had a lot of people do that, catch me at the right moment, and I just go flying.
Yeah, you want that foot to be off the ground, even a tiny bit. It totally matters a lot. And you want to push it all the way through as far as you can, and then pull them towards that foot. But yeah, it's a fun sweep to do, or fun takedown.
Yep.
Joe, how about you? How is your takedown game currently, and what do you expect to be working on?
Well, I get taken down frequently, and so from that perspective, it's on fire. It's pretty non-existent. I have had it in my arsenal from time to time, an arm drag to a trip from behind. I think that's a really safe takedown. I like that move. So I've had that, a collar, a snap down to a low double or an ankle pick or something. But what I think I'm going to work on for this month is fireman's carry. I've had that in my arsenal before. Even though I'm old, for some reason that maneuver at dropping on my knees doesn't seem to give me too much trouble. So I'm going to work on the fireman's carry this month.
I never thought of it, but that should be Byron's move.
Yeah, 100% correct.
Yeah.
He should just do seminars back to back to back on the fireman's carry.
Yeah,
you should, Byron.
And the hose choke.
Oh, man. They made me put that away. Joe, I think you had a good point as far as getting taken down. And so let's just say, you don't like what's your good takedown? I don't really think I have a great takedown of any kind, or I don't even have the best takedown that I have yet. Well, part of stand-up game and part of takedowns is not getting taken down. So maybe your thought process is, I don't get taken down quite so fast. Maybe I defend a couple takedowns first. Maybe I work on that aspect. And it's just like anything else in jiu-jitsu. If somebody takes you down easily, ask them, what should I have done differently? How could I have countered that better? Where did I sprawl? And where's my weight? Was it wrong? And get up and try it again. And just having the idea, it's really, before you have a good takedown, you also need to be hard to take down. The two go hand in hand.
Yeah, but you think, a guy changes levels and you end up down blocking and sprawling. And from there, you got head control, you got elbow control, you put your head in the hole, you got the back. There's a takedown. So, you can, by having good defense, you can turn that into offense. And it's the same thing for that offensive guy. You sprawl really strong on that shot, he peeks out. He can peek out and then turn it into a takedown. You can basically come to the back and turn it into a takedown. So, I do like what you're saying there, Byron, about, having a strong defense. And, it's just like everything we do, you kind of reverse engineer it. You ask questions, people, hey, what were you doing? And as your defense gets better, your offense gets better. And, it just goes hand in hand.
We put those hands together here in grappling.
But But I like yours, Joe, too, talking about the arm drag to back control. And that's one thing, my arm drag has always been weak. And I do like that. I think maybe that's what I'm going to work on instead of my foot sweeps. I think I got a better chance of getting better at the arm drag. I do like it. It is safe. You're ending up in the back, on the guy's back. And that's something I've always wanted to get better at. And that's, after hearing Joe, that's what I'm going to focus on.
Cool.
Yeah, I like that nice, safe trip from behind, but Gary's probably going to go straight to the suplex.
It's his style.
The minute I try to lift somebody, you're just going to hear my back crack and I'll scream bloody murder.
Better get the walker.
Yeah. Last time Gary did a suplex, his singlet broke, and it was a bit revealing.
Hey, I will tell you a little story here. Just the other day at work, I split my pants.
Nice.
So, I always joke around, I'll walk by people's office with some stupid strut, and I split my pants like 10 o'clock in the morning. And so what you have to do at that point is just tell everybody you split your pants.
At 10 o'clock in the morning?
Yeah. And just stayed the whole day like that.
Oh, you're awesome, brother.
Yeah, but that was my game plan. It's like, hey, I'm just going to tell everybody right now, if you want to stare at my butt, you can. But if not, I just want you to be prepared in case you see a little bit of the undies.
HR gave him a call within an hour. Gary, I know you pretty well,
Yes.
man. You're the type of guy that needs to have a pair of sweatpants in your desk at all times. Surprised that you didn't have that handy.
Probably not a bad idea.
He probably walked around the rest of the day in his fight shorts. He's just not telling us. Spats, maybe?
Yeah, I've never wore spats ever, but
Really?
yeah, never.
He's getting
No,
close.
I've started wearing them under my fight shorts, and they really wick away the sweat, help it evaporate quicker, and it feels cooler. You'd think they feel hot, you're wearing more clothes, but no, I love it. Plus, it keeps me from shedding my leg hair all over the place, which my training partners don't care for too much.
So,
They
Joe,
like to,
you say wick away your sweat. That to me says something. You said evaporates. I think off your skin onto mine.
I don't care where the sweat goes,
It's just off of me.
as long as it goes away.
keeps the hair away. So yeah,
That's funny. Guys, I want to let you guys know that I and my coach Jake Fox are planning on going kind of into Joe's territory to teach a seminar, kind of do a little camp there. We're looking forward to that chance, guys, to train.
Camping.
Well, not so much camping, more jiu-jitsu. We're looking at March 7th coming up, and there'll be information on the website about it. You could reserve your spot. Hoping to see you guys out there, and especially if you're in the Lake Jackson area near Joe's home area.
Yeah, if you're in the Houston area, you're within an hour. If you're Beaumont, you're 2 hours. San Antonio, Austin, you're a few hours away. So if you're listening to this and you're in Southeast Texas, come train with us.
Yeah, that'd be great. You have any questions, BjjBrick@gmail.com. I'll be happy to help you get set up if you're going to come down and train with us. That'd be awesome. It's a good chance to get down and meet some more people and to share some of our stuff.
Joe.
Get to meet Joe again.
Yep.
But I do want to give a quick shout out to some of our Patreon supporters, Jamie, Adam, and Emma. Thank you guys for your continued support on Patreon. Patreon is the main thing keeping this brick floating out there in this sometimes rough waters. That is, we don't all have cruise ships like Joe to sail this brick on. But anyway, yeah. So Patreon's a website where people support content producers like podcasters or artists or musicians or whatever. If you want to support us, you can go there and pledge $1 or $2 an episode. It really means a lot to us. I send you out a free gi patch as a token of appreciation. You're also invited to join the private Facebook group. And if you're on our Patreon support team and not in the private group, please send me a message at BjjBrick@gmail.com with your Facebook page a link to that, and I'll get you added in, my friend, because we really want you in there and kind of contributing behind the scenes. We have a regular Facebook page, a lot of fun there. We always are talking about the current stuff, and Joe's always finding interesting videos. Some of them make me laugh pretty hard. But the private group is a little bit, the last one, Joe, there's
the last one was great.
A fight in a restaurant breaks out, and this guy does not stop eating his meal. He watches a little bit, but he doesn't really care.
That dude was so cool. He had his phone out, but he was just texting somebody. He wasn't recording the fight.
He didn't care.
Yeah.
I also like the one, the lady there, Joe, basically just running into the wall and everything. He put some good stuff out there.
I don't know what she thought about that VR headset she had on, but it didn't do what she thought it would.
I'll be sitting there at work, and I'll just start laughing. Everybody's like, what's going on? You split your pants again? No, I'm just watching some of Joe's videos.
Guys, next week we've got a great show. Gustavo Dantes comes back, and it's been several years since he's been on the show, and really great to catch back up with him. He's got some big work going that he wants to share with you guys, and he's really doing some great work with some underprivileged areas, and
awesome.
has some crazy stories to share from what's been going on. But really cool episode, really fun interview, and it's good to have people like Gustavo out there doing what they do, helping people, and also spreading jiu-jitsu at the same time. So I'm excited to bring you guys this episode next week.
Is he the BJJ mental coach?
Yeah,
yes.
he's the mental
Yeah,
coach.
that guy's brilliant. So I'm excited to hear that interview.
Well, good. That's one down that Joe's looking forward to. I know you've been dreading this whole episode this week, so. But until then, my friends, I want you to work some takedowns and stay sweaty, my friend.
And don't forget to shower and practice your arm drags.
Train hard, train fireman carries, and we'll see you on the mat, guys.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
That's fun, Gary. We were like, Joe was telling his story, and he stopped him. But hey, just heads up, guys, we lost Gary. He sent me a text, and he's gone. He may or may not come back.
I thought I could get logged back on before, So I had this one computer I've used forever, and I don't know what happened to it. It just shut down on me. So I grabbed my work computer, and it won't let me download Skype without an administrator. So I was like, should I call Blake? So then I steal my wife's Chromebook and had to download. So I did all that like a couple minutes time. Yeah, that was.
But I was just I told everybody, as of now, Gary's gone. We'll see if he comes back. And then within a few minutes, you're like, hey, he's back. It's kind of funny. And we could hear you at the beginning, but you were fighting. You were moving cords and stuff. I don't think your headset was plugged in, maybe, or something.
Man, my cords were all over. They still are. I'm afraid to move anything. Like. I want to get rid of this picture, different things, and I was like, man, it's gonna mess me up if I try to do anything. So I'm just gonna live with it. So I was trying, I kept picking my eyebrows, and I was like, oh no, those guys are gonna start laughing. I have to stop. And
you started playing with the camera.
Yeah,
Joe called you out on it.
That time I actually was doing it on purpose to mess with you guys.
It worked.
Yeah.